seems to me that human beings are bent towards complicating things. Like we will always take and add more and more and more onto our life. It seems like that's sort of a default mode, especially of the earnest teacher's heart. Okay, and you watching this, you're an earnest educator. You're taking time to sit here and learn about the disciplines of time management. So what you and I know about ourselves is that we tend toward taking more and more on. And a great story to me that illustrates this is myself, first year of my teaching career. I'm teaching in Baltimore, loving my job, loving my work, doing a lot of working. And so I'm talking on the phone with this young lady who I was very interested in at the time, a young woman named Crystal. And I'm sitting here telling her about my working life. And I say to her something, I probably like deepen my voice and say, hey, sometimes the only way that I see the sunshine is it's through the window of my classroom, because when I get to work, it's dark. And when I go home at night, it's also dark, because I care about the kids so much. And she responded, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. It's very unattractive. You need to get that fixed if you'd like to keep talking to me, sir. And of course, I did get that fixed, because I knew right then I needed to marry this woman. And I did. But Krista was right. And she was actually onto something that way back in the 50s, a guy named Cyril Northcote Parkinson, he came up with this idea called Parkinson's Law. I mean, Google this. It's a really amazing concept. And Parkinson's Law basically just says that tasks will always expand to fill whatever time you give them. So if you have to, if you have to grade a set of papers, and if you give yourself 2 weeks, 1 hour per night, while you're at home with your family to grade those papers for 2 weeks, guess what? It'll probably take you 2 weeks. But if you do not allow yourself any time at night at all to grade those papers, and you have to give them back by tomorrow, now all of a sudden the grading task has completely changed. It cannot be complex. It can't be complicated at all. It's going to need to be bare bones simple in order for you to complete that. So Parkinson's Law is really important for us, and it informs the need for the discipline of constraints. And so here's the first thing that I want you to do. The first reflective application exercise, and this is basically what the woman who would become my wife had me do, is you got to come up with simple rules for managing your working hours. I want you to focus on work right now. And the rule that I came up with was this. I was allowed to work anytime in the morning that I wanted to, okay, because I don't like to wake up early out of bed. So this was not going to be a temptation for me to overwork in the early morning. But I could start at any time in the day, but I had to be done. I think back then the rule was I had to be done by 6:30. I mean, I was single. I was living in an apartment by myself. There was way more flexibility with my time. So I had to be done at 6:30 p.m. and I think that I could work every Saturday morning until like 11 a.m. if I wanted to. So this gave me, I don't know, a 65 hour work week. Still pretty intense, not something that I currently maintain. So now my rule is I can start working anytime that I want in the morning, and I have to be home by 5:30 p.m. every weeknight. And then if I'm in an emergency situation, there's just something going on at work that's really intense, like the few weeks before the AP exam every year. Some of my students are AP World History students. There's a lot of grading that has to take place, so sometimes we'll bring in the Saturday morning, and I can work again from as early as I want until 11 a.m. But those are the hours in which I'm allowed to work. Those are my constraints for work. And I want you to create rules for yourself for work. And obviously your life is different from mine, so you may need to have different patches of work time in different portions of the day. I don't care where they are, but I just want you to set some rules right now. Some rules that are going to challenge you to have work stay within certain boundaries. And make no mistake, as you seek to follow this work schedule, as you seek to live by these simple rules that govern how much time you can work, bad things will happen. You will realize that you can't do the thing that you said that you would do without breaking your rules, right? If you said, I'm going to have all my bulletin boards decorated tomorrow for the new unit, but now all of a sudden you have to go home because you've run into that rule that you've set for yourself, that constraint. that you've set for yourself, well, you have to let the constraint win. And this is going to help you to realize, okay, I either need to manage my time better next time so that I have time to do the bulletin boards, or stop saying that I'm going to do the bulletin boards. But it's going to force you to make more decisions, to make more hard decisions about what gets your time and what doesn't. And that's going to accelerate your growth as a wise time manager. Simple rules. That's how you do it. Okay? And a side mission for this reflective application exercise would be create simple rules for the other areas of your life that you identified as important. So go ahead and play around with simple rules outside of work, but for sure you have to make some simple rules for work. Okay? And then the final thing that I want you to do is I want you to create a visual representation then of what these rules look like in your life. So I've got a link inside the lesson beneath this video. I've got a link to a printable week on a page thing. There's a link to like an Excel version that you can do if you want to do it on a spreadsheet. You can create this in a Google Classroom or a Google Calendar page. You can just make it show you 1 week. But what I want you to do is I want you to create a representation of your working hours. All right. And there's something I want you to look for when you do this. So as you seek to visually represent your work week, I want you to use one color or one shade for the hours that you have no control over. You have to use those hours for what they say they're for. So for example, if you have classes that you teach, right? I do this for 4.5 hours every day. Those are non-negotiable hours. I can't change those. If I want to go do something else with my time, those hours, then I'm going to lose my job. I have to do teaching during those hours. So make sure that the non-negotiable stuff, maybe it's a weekly meeting that you have to go to. Make sure that the non-negotiable stuff is shaded one way. And then I want you to represent all the rest of the time that you have for work, the time that you can use flexibly, the time that there is some give, there is some autonomy. I want you to represent that with a different color. And for that second group, that group where it's a prep hour, it's after school, maybe you're going to work 1 hour per night after the kids are in bed or something like this. For that flexible group, I want you to add up those hours, the number of hours that you have per week that are flexible, that are available to you in a flexible way. Because during those hours, we've got to make decisions about, well, do I spend those creating pretty worksheets? Do I spend those planning lessons? Do I spend those reading professional development books? Do I spend those working on a classroom management plan or something? How do I spend those? That's where we're going to go next. So create simple rules, represent your newly agreed upon work plan, your work schedule, represent that visually somehow, and add up your magic number, the number of hours you have per week to use flexibly for your work. And these are all designed to help us with the time management discipline of constraint.